my name is Leah. I'm from Lighthouse Baptist School. For my monologue, I'll be doing the story that shook the world. They've said that mine was a story that shook the world. I guess they see it as that way, but I don't. It's special to me, but it's my story. And we're all partial to our own stories, aren't we? I mean, my husband and I were nothing extraordinary. Just two young people who wanted to serve God with heart, soul, and mind. My husband believed in physical fitness, but even more than that, he believed that true manliness was in a man's walk with God. Ever the gentleman, it was his exuberance and love for Christ that first drew me to him at college. He also saw something in me that he was attracted to. So after some time of deciding if our relationship was God's will, and after he had completed some missionary work, he believed God gave him the green light. And so, I started my life as Miss Jim Elliott. When we first started our work with the Aka Indians, I knew that God came first with Jim Elliott. God was number one in his life. There was never any question about it. I accepted it as easily as I accepted the fact that the sun rose every morning. It was, after all, one of the things that I loved most about Jim. So when he and 4 other missionaries decided to go to a primitive tribe of Aka Indians that had never before heard the gospel, I wasn't surprised. This is what Jim lived and breathed for. He was known to tell people, when it comes time to die, make sure that all you have to do is die. And as Nate Saint wrote, they wanted to make an opening into the Aka prison for Christ. They believed the Bible when it said that people from every tribe and tongue would stand before God, and they wanted to reach as many tribes as they could. A week before Jim died, the other 4 missionary wives and I talked about possibly being widows someday. What would we do if that happened? God gave us peace of heart and confidence that whatever might happen, his word would hold. To us and to our husbands, the word sacrifice disappeared from our lips, and things we once loved became hated things. We started to despise time-robbing distractions that took our energies away from Christ. We weren't brave or special. We all just believed God and believed in his word. The morning of January 8th, 1956, started out the same for all of us missionary wives. Our husbands had landed safely on Palm Beach, the place that they had been dropping the presents for the Akas. It had been a couple days of uneventful contact that had gone on between the men and 2 of the natives. As the helicopter made pass around the island, 10 native men were seen making their way to the beach. The men were beyond ecstatic. This was the day that they'd been preparing for months. This could be the beginning of a friendship that'll bring light to a dark people. They were to be in contact with us at 4:30. Well, 4:30 came and went, and Palm Beach was silent. A silent sort of dread began to creep into the house as wives were in. Even before we knew. The helicopter was spotted on the beach, empty and stripped. None of our husbands were spotted on the sandy shore. A ground party was organized and sent out, where eventually all 5 missionary husbands were found. Most were floating face down in the river, 200 yards from Palm Beach. Aka spears protruding from their bodies. You ask me how I can be as calm as I am. I will tell you this. As I awaited word of my husband's death, I went about my duties as usual. As I did, however, the verse that God gave me when we first started our missionary work kept going through my mind over and over and over. When thou passest through the rivers, I will be with thee, and through the waters, they shall not overflow. The thought, Lord, let not the waters overflow me, was my cry. I'm not superhuman. I have emotions and fears and feelings. I loved my husband Jim and daughter Valerie with everything I had. Yet I knew that God was in control, and he alone had a plan for our lives. We are mere human beings, a speck compared to our mighty God. We have no right to question why he does the things the way he does. As we awaited confirmation of our husband's death, we had peace. As we spotted their common grave on the beach, we had peace. One of the wives sighed and said, as we flew over the common grave on the helicopter, that is the most beautiful cemetery in the world. When we packed our bags and headed back to the States, we had peace. Never did we have one thought of bitterness or revenge. God had proved himself over and over to us widows, and he continued to show himself strong as some of us widows headed back to that same tribe of Aka Indians with the gospel, and eventually saw many of them saved. One of the men who threw the spear that killed my husband now plays with my daughter. They sit and share prayer and a meal with my family. They no longer go by the name Aka, which means naked or savage, but now they go by the name Moriani. They're a changed people. So, is my story one that shook the world? I do not know. You can be the judge of that. I am just Elizabeth Elliott, widow of Martyr Jim Elliott. I am no one special. All I know is that is my story to tell, and I shall never forget. Through it all, God never forsook me, nor did he once let the waters overflow me. Lord, let it ever be so.